Welcome back to The Truth Hurts, where we expose corrupt politicians and lying corporate media. I'm Jake Duesenberg, your host, broadcasting live from Roseville, Minnesota, in the belly of the beast, the liberal zombie apocalypse of Minneapolis and St. Paul. We got an interesting show today. Last night, there was a GOP debate in Congressional District 2, which is south of the Twin Cities area, and it was with the abiding candidates. What does that mean? Well, there are many candidates running for Tim Walz's position, which is the current governor of Minnesota. Tim Walz has bowed out, so it's now Amy Klobuchar as the presumptive nominee of the Democrat Party. And of the dozen or so candidates that are running for that seat, there's only three, I believe, that said they will abide by the Republican Party endorsement, which happens in late May. That means if they don't, the candidates that don't abide by it will just file in a primary that will take place in August. The three that said that they will abide by it, assuming someone gets the endorsement, they will not file for that primary election. And those candidates are Kendall Qualls, Patrick Knight, and Lisa Damuth. It's kind of interesting way that CD2 is doing it. I don't want to fully hate on it, although I do think that there's some other voices we'd like to hear. But quite frankly, there are also tiers to this race, and Kendall Qualls and Lisa Damuth, by all data that we can see, are the two top running right now. And then I would say the one that's probably up at that level is Mike Lindell. Patrick Knight seems to be a tier below, but I think looked most impressive of the group that night. So we're going to break down the video, what happened, because I know you probably don't have an hour and a half time to go watch it. You probably didn't go to it at Bogart's. By the way, Bogart's, great place in Apple Valley. We used to do events there all the time. Just haven't been down there lately. So we'll break down that video and let you know what I think. It's interesting. I'll put it this way. Republicans have got a lot of work this year. A lot of work, because they are screwing up majorly. And some of that's not the fault of Republicans in this state, although they certainly get blamed on a lot of other things. But I'll tell you what, an unpopular war in Iran is not going to help the electoral success of Republicans this November. That's just my opinion right now, and I think I'll be right on it. Well, we might get into that a little later. Anyhow, this episode is brought to you by Alpine Cabinetry in the great city of St. Cloud, Minnesota. We're also brought to you by Elite Guardian, MN.com. Let me pull this up for you right now. We are offering, you go to EliteGuardianMN.com. We have a bunch of Minnesota permit to carry classes. You can sign up. There's just a ton you can sign up for. Now, I don't care if you're brand new or you've been shooting forever and you need to renew your permit, which is required every 5 years in the state of Minnesota. I get it. I'm against that. I 100% agree. We need constitutional carry in the state. But until that law changes, you need to get it every 5 years. And this Minnesota Permit to Carry class, which is an introduction class, is what satisfies that requirement. And if you just go to Minnesota Permit to Carry class under EliteGuardianMN.com, you'll see we have a ton of options coming up. March 23rd, Wednesday the 25th, March 30th, and April 1st, morning and evening classes. The way I look at it, as the weather gets nicer, I say that fully knowing there's a blizzard coming this weekend. But as the weather gets nicer, I would much rather be at a gun range all day. I don't want to be stuck behind a desk. So sign on up. But if that doesn't work for you, there's another option. We have virtual classes. We're doing them both this Sunday and the following Sunday. It's 6 to 8:30 p.m. 2.5 hours, you knock out the curriculum that you can over a virtual means, and then you'll do about an hour and a half of pistol training and then actual qualification. So hopefully, if that works for you, come sign up for the course. Go to EliteGuardianMN.com. Let's get into the subject matter here. This debate held by CD2, my friend Joe Ditto, who's the chair down there, did an introduction, handed it over to Taylor Rahm. Taylor Rahm then was the moderator for the debate. So let's listen to intros by the candidates, and I'm going to give you my opinion once they're done. I think it'll set the tone for the rest of the analysis here, but let's go ahead and look at the candidates and their opening remarks. Oh, by the way, broadcasted by Alpha News last night. It was live streamed.
So obviously, the three candidates here tonight are Kendall Qualls, Speaker Lisa Damuth, and Patrick Knight. So we are going to start here with opening remarks with Kendall Qualls. So I will recognize Mr. Qualls for 5 minutes.
All right. Fellow Republicans, we're supposed to be the responsible party, the grown-up party, the party that gets results. But it hasn't happened in 20 years, not just for the governor's seat, any statewide seat. We need a new strategy. I want to make a case for a new set of candidates. 2 business leaders, my running mate and myself, that have never held public office, never wanted to, but wanting to save our state. 2 business leaders that have experience in actually building businesses, running businesses, large organizations. Okay.
Someone's telling him to get the mic up.
I'm not going to sit down. I'll just do this. How about that? Okay. And it's important for me to stand on this, my opening statement, because this is critical. I mean, it's important for me. Because the message I want to communicate is this: we need a drastic strategy change. We can't keep getting the same results. My friends, many of you know this. Minnesota is on the cusp of falling economically irreversible decline. If we wind up losing this next election, we've lost the state. We need something different.
By the way, let me just interject right there. So that is something you hear every election. Oh, Sean Hannity's like infamously known for saying this. This is the most important election of your lifetime. Well, there's a little bit of truth to that because we are losing so badly in this country, and it almost doesn't matter who's in charge, Republican, Democrats, as a uniparty, and we keep on this decline, right? Or we keep seeing the amount of government increase and our liberties shrink. So it does seem to be like every election is the most important election of our time because they keep progressively making it worse. What's interesting about Minnesota is, you know, I'm not the kind of guy that goes, "Oh, Minnesota's lost for good," because I just don't. I have a vision. I see this from a different way because I was a Wisconsin resident, leaving the state in 2004, coming over to Minnesota where I was born. And sorry, 2005. And at that time, Minnesota was relatively better. Tim Walz was governor here. They had permit to carry in Minnesota. Tax policy, all that kind of stuff seemed much better than Wisconsin at the time. I mean, no one says that nowadays from the conservative ranks. Wisconsin is relatively better. I have friends that just moved over the border. Now, I'm not saying Wisconsin's that great, but, you know, a lot of people I know, productive members of society. I just had my friend Don Hazinga on here last Thursday, and Don moved to Florida. And I got lots of friends in Texas, but Florida is interesting because Florida was a state that voted for Barack Obama in 2012. And now it seems like the bastion of conservatism in the union. You know, they're talking about like Texas going Democrat, but Florida's like the strong Republican state now, right? That was the hanging Chad back in 2000. And it could have gone either way, Bush or Gore. So I look at it that way, that Minnesota could swing back way the other way. But the point here that I believe to be somewhat true is this election, and it's looking really bad for Republicans, right? But this election is just going to further increase the problem of fraud and runaway government spending and all the bankrupt nature of these new programs like the Minnesota Paid Family Leave. And so what's going to end up happening is the pain's going to get much worse if we don't do a 180, right? So now that will probably lead to a massive Republican victory in 4 years down the road, but we don't want the pain. And how many more productive members of our state leave? You know, and that's maybe my more glass half full kind of view. You could look at the view of we might just end up being California, and it's almost a lost cause. You know, California was a strong Republican state until the Democrats took it over, and no one even thinks that's going to go Republican again. I'll continue on.
I want to make the case for my running mate and myself, 2 business leaders outside the state of outside the politics of Minnesota. So let me give you my background. Some of you know my background already. Many of you don't. I started my life in poverty. Lived with my divorced mother in Harlem, New York City, from 1st grade to 5th grade. And when I was 10 years old, I moved with my father in a trailer park in Oklahoma. I worked full-time to pay my way through college. I served on active duty for 5 years as an artillery officer, served in the DMZ right in South and North Korea. After that, I led sales and marketing teams for Fortune 100 companies, small teams as well as corporate responsibility. My wife and I have been married for 40 years this coming May. We raised 5 kids together. We adopted one of them. I can't remember which one. We love them all the same. And now they're starting their own families right here in Minnesota. I have a daughter that's getting married this Saturday. We have been absolutely blessed by God and this country. And so I've experienced the American dream. My running mate experienced the American dream himself. But we come from different backgrounds, different paths of life, different generations. But we've arrived at the same destination with the same mission to rescue the state we love and for the future of our families and the future of your families. So that's where we are. And I want to make a case and paint a picture for the future of our state. So I want to accelerate to the general election. We have two options as delegates.
Oh, by the way, so I do want to just note that is kind of, what I would say is a good resume that I'd be looking for, and a lot of you guys would probably be looking for a candidate. Someone that comes from the private sector, someone that did time in the military. He predates my time in the military probably by 10 years at least. So, not a wartime military. But I think where he kind of falls short is just more recently he's been in charge of a nonprofit that seems to be like sidelining him so that he could run for governor, because there's some large donors that have taken interest in Kendall, which scares a lot of people, the grassroots people, is that, well, why do these people have interest in Kendall? Do they really believe in him like he's this great leader, or is it because they believe that they'll get something from it? Is that positions in the cabinet? Is that carve out legislative or bureaucratic things? So that's kind of a lot of people's concern, is he's kind of been part of this, like, well, first of all, he's been running for things, Congress, and he ran for governor in the last go around, and then he's just been sitting in a nonprofit the last couple of years. But you take that away, his resume is not that bad, knowing that he has worked for like Johnson & Johnson, a big pharmaceutical company. Where I also think that Kendall falls short is, and you're going to see this throughout the debate, stumbles over his words all the time. He's not a very good communicator. His wife, Sheila, is. Like, I don't know why she doesn't run. She would shine in many regards. The only reason Kendall doesn't seem so bad is you get, Mrs. Word Salad, which is his opponent, Lisa Damuth, and we'll definitely get into that. So that's kind of the thing that, he's not, I don't want to say like he's not polished, because polish is usually a bad term here, but at some point you got to like be able to communicate effectively, and he just doesn't seem like he has that in him. Now, Kendall, we've been tough on here because I don't know where he stands in COVID issue. He had these stances as very anti-mask, and then there's all these pictures of him wearing a mask, and he refused to sign the Never Again pledge until yesterday. Kendall Qualls did sign the pledge. You go to actionforliberty.com. Kendall Qualls signs the Never Again pledge. Kendall joins GOP candidates Mike Lindell, John Corrine, Phil Parrish, and Raul Estrada in signing the Never Again pledge. Qualls signed the Never Again pledge ahead of the GOP endorsement of Biden governor debate on March 11th. And here you can see him signing the pledge. Looks like it was probably at the actual event. Damuth is, as seen in a recent AFRL, and I showed this on the show the other day, Lisa Damuth is campaigning on the Never Again bill, despite the fact that she blocked the bill on the floor and refused to sign the Never Again pledge. So far, she won't sign the pledge, but Kendall has. All right, let's continue on.
Republican delegates that are in the room, two options. Do we stay conventional like we always have and select a candidate from the legislature like we always have and not been successful? I know it's tough because it's always comfortable to stay with what we know. But Minnesota is not in a comfortable position. Okay? If we lose it this time, we've lost it. Stay with the conventional or do something bold and select a candidates that have been in business for decades and know how to run large organizations, but most importantly, know how to hold people accountable. So here's the picture. Our legislator against their legislator. Our politician against their 20-year politician, a sitting U.S. senator. Or two business leaders outside the world of politics that have been running business.
Okay, that's actually a really good point. And because he's such a bad communicator, I don't feel like it's stuck. And you'll see that. It takes some shots during the night, and they don't really stick because he's just not that effective at it. This is not his forte. I don't know Kendall very well. Seems like he's probably a nice guy. Maybe he's a good business leader. Who knows? But when it comes to performing on stage, like no one really goes away saying, "Wow, that was a real mic drop." But listen to what he says here.
Against our legislator against their legislator. Our politician against their 20-year politician, a sitting U.S. senator.
It's almost like Kendall's watching the show because that's our point. Is like if Lisa Damuth is the candidate, what we're essentially doing is we're putting up some milquetoast Republican against the Democrats' milquetoast politician, one with huge name ID, one who's been in office even longer, but they both have been. And you really don't give the voters much of a choice. They're going to pick Amy Klobuchar. And all these Republicans that are telling you, oh, look at this, Amy Klobuchar's in trouble. She's under 50%. She's at 49% in polling. What they neglect to see is that Amy Klobuchar's at 49%, Lisa Damuth is at 35%, and 16% are undecided, meaning that Lisa has to win all the 16% that are undecided in order to beat Amy Klobuchar. That's not going to happen because when you have two people that are milquetoast, they're going to go with the devil they know instead of the devil they don't know. And so I think Kendall's doing a good job pointing that out because Lisa can say she's a small business owner, but in the regards, she is the Speaker of the House. And she also says that you are an inside. You are the most inside of all candidates, right? I would argue Kendall's been on the periphery of being on the inside just by nature of running so many dang times and things that he's done, and Patrick Knight on this stage is really the outsider. But, you can't make any case that Lisa Damuth is the outsider. She's clearly the insider. She's establishment. She is the Speaker of the House. She is the top Republican in the state of Minnesota.
Or two business leaders outside the world of politics that have been running businesses for decades when the state is on the precipice of losing economically. That's the difference we have between the two candidates. My friends, we have an opportunity. If you select the Qualls-Nicholson ticket, we have an opportunity not only to win the governorship, but we're going to pursue the first trifecta for the Republican Party since 1969. The Senate is led by the Democrats only by one seat. We're tied in the House. This is not time to be content and satisfied with winning the bronze medal. My friends, we're Americans. It's this time to go for the gold medal, to be like the champions we are, because Americans are meant to dream big, be bold, and make the impossible possible. If we work together, my friends, we can save the state we love for the first time in decades. And I'm asking you to join me. Thank you.
Okay, we got commercials. Let me get rid of that thing. Looks like I'd watched this before. I assumed I wasn't going to get commercials. Oh, you know what? I watched it on my phone. That's why. I did. I'm not, if you want to interrupt me, just hit a rumble rant because I will definitely get to your comment that way. But I did see Brad say, why now? Kendall waiting 3 years to sign the Never Again bills or Never Again pledge smells of desperation. Well, that's what it is. I mean, essentially, Kendall is in a real race for the endorsement with Lisa Damuth. It's hard for us to analyze who's in the lead right now. At one point, I think it's Kendall's, and then I see Lisa, and it really might come down to the convention and special moves there. And what's the effect Mike Lindell's going to have on it? Is it going to hold up any of those two from getting the endorsement? Big question, and it's a serious question. So Kendall is in a point where he needs to start. It's like the Trump thing. You need to build this coalition, and the biggest obvious coalition out there you could build is with the Action for Liberty community that made the Never Again bill their single biggest issue, right? All over the state of Minnesota, people became delegates, putting forth resolutions saying never again, right? So why? So maybe he's just doing it because it's politically expedient and it's best for him. And you know what? We don't really care at Action for Liberty because we want you coming our way. Even if you don't have the right reasons, we want you coming our way. And by the way, if you get in office and you go the wrong way, then we will hold you accountable. If you don't believe me, I mean, I voted for Donald Trump, and I am critical of Donald Trump these days, right? So we believe in these policies. We believe in what's right and wrong. We will hold you to it. That's the whole point of the pledge. And it's a beautiful, wonderful pledge. Some say it's the best pledge out there. So I don't care if he's doing it for political expediency. He did it. Now, here's the question. Why won't Lisa Damuth do it? All right, she is speaking next. Let's go to Lisa Damuth's comments.
And
Now
now
I'll sit for the rest of them now.
Now Speaker Lisa Damuth.
Well, good evening. I am going to remain seated because that's what our camera crew is asking for in the back, so they can continue to see through the live stream. My name is Lisa Damuth. I have the honor of being with you tonight. Thank you for showing up. You may know me as Speaker of the House in the state of Minnesota. You may know my record of breaking the Democrat trifecta in the 2024 election and bringing a little bit of balance back, literal balance and a tie back to the House of Representatives. But I'm going to take these first few minutes to let you know about Lisa Damuth, the person that probably never thought that she would be sitting here as Speaker of the House and candidate for governor. I'm born and raised in Minnesota.
Okay, so, there's so many things to pick apart with Lisa Damuth, and because she's got a voting record, and it's not a good voting record, we have to be honest about it. It's not a good voting record. She could say she's a conservative. She's not a conservative. Because really, when you're a legislator and you don't vote like a conservative, you can't say you're a conservative. Oh, you're going to magically become governor of Minnesota, and then you're going to be conservative. No, you're not. No, you're not. We know who you are. But just from a basic level of how to be a candidate, you shouldn't be just me. This doesn't inspire anybody, right? You should be talking about the problems we as voters are facing and how you are going to come in and solve those problems. But listen to her. Her opening remarks to try to capture the audience is all about who I am. I'm the Speaker of the House. Let me tell you a little bit about myself, and I'm going to tell you how I grew up and where I grew up and all that kind of stuff. And an interesting story I saw someone in the comments had made. That's how she starts. I mean, could you lose us more right off the bat by that? All right, let's continue on.
Minnesota matters.
Sorry, 1 second.
Governor. She would be sitting here as Speaker of the House and candidate for governor. I'm born and raised in Minnesota. Minnesota matters very much to me. My husband, Nick, and I have 4 adult children and 7 grandchildren, all in the state of Minnesota. And it matters where our state is headed for my family and yours. I was born in Paynesville, think central Minnesota, in the late 60s. I'm biracial. My dad is Black. My mom is white. It was legal for them to be married in Minnesota, but it wasn't yet legal for them to be married in the entire United States. I was called the N-word almost every day of first grade. I've got a great family that supported me.
Does anyone believe that? Does anyone believe that? If you're in first grade and you're called the N-word every day, it sounds like there was probably one stupid kid that was a bully, right? And maybe the teacher didn't know. Don't act as if you just saw, because I mean, this is the other thing about Lisa. She plays identity politics all the time. It's like the trick. I know Razzle always talks about this. She's like a DFL plant. I wouldn't go that far, but I would say that she's very aligned with Democrats in that sense. She's always playing identity politics. And I just don't believe this story, I mean, I guess that would be the one way I would steel man is there's one kid that would just do it daily. But she's kind of giving you the insinuation that she's dealing with racism as she grows up. It's like first grade, really? What a weird thing to say.
But the community, there were problems in there. My parents decided to move to the Minneapolis area. So when I was 7, we moved to South Minneapolis. My mom worked very, very hard, ended up being a single mom. And she worked hard and provided an excellent, excellent life for me. We moved multiple places. I went to 8 different schools, kindergarten through 12th grade, because of housing. So I know what it is like when there are housing challenges too. But I'm proud to say that I am a business owner. Again, you heard a little bit about my family. We moved back to the Paynesville area and then the Cold Spring area where we've been in the same house almost 30 years. As a small business owner, I know exactly how hard things can be with mandates put on by the state. I never saw myself as being in public service, but in 2007, there were 3 spots open on my local school board. One incumbent had filed, and so I did what anyone would do.
All right, hold on 1 second.
Now my local being in public service, But in 2007, there were 3 spots open on my.
Okay, so she's basically been a politician since 2007, and it's right now we're in 2027, so roughly 20 years. She is a career politician, right? When did she first get elected to the House? Was it like 2018, 2016, something like that? Now Speaker of the House, and she hasn't even been Speaker of the House for 2 years, and she's already trying to run for governor. That's just a career politician. Once again, that was a good part by Kendall Qualls saying we're from the business community. This is the person that's just another legislator, another career politician. This is essentially what Kendall's saying.
A local school board, one incumbent had filed, and so I did what anyone would do. I tore that article out of the paper and I left it at my husband's place for dinner. And I said, hey, you need to run for the school board. And he said, I would never do that. You do it. My immediate response was, I can't do that. And he asked the best question, why not? I had never thought of it. I stepped into that running as a write-in in my first election, 4 people for 3 spots and won. Served for 3 full terms, and in 2018 wasn't going to be doing anything else until my local representative was going to be running for an open Senate seat. He contacted me. His wife remembered that our boys had played hockey together and said, have you ever thought of running for the House of Representatives? I said, no, it's never crossed my mind. You guys fight too much and you don't get anything done. He said, and I apologize, stop watching the news. And yes, we do. I ran my first election for the legislature in 2018, winning. I've served for 4 terms. 3 in the minority. Carried one of my first bills was about fraud. Democrats did not want to hear anything about fraud. As soon as I became minority leader in 2023 during the Democrat trifecta, I said, hold on, House Republicans, we are going to end this trifecta together in 24. We were the only legislative race on the ticket. We won with a tie, flipping a northern Minnesota Iron Range seat that had been held by a Democrat.
This is people that are not from the state might not know how bad it is here, and this is the Republican Party in a nutshell in the state of Minnesota. We won by a tie. No, they definitely weren't going around selling the message. We're going to tie in the Minnesota House. They were going to win back the Minnesota House. They didn't win back. They actually had a chance to win back the House. They could have literally booted Brad Tabke and made that election happen again. At least the Damuth, the one that compromised. I mean, we have to understand the Republicans should have had a re-election in House District 54A where Brad Tabke won by 14 votes, even though 21 ballots were thrown in the trash. So that should have been a re-election. And it was Lisa Damuth and her insiders at the Capitol that accepted that, made a deal, a backroom deal with Melissa Hortman so that Lisa Damuth could be Speaker of the House. You see? Me. It's all about me. I'm going to be Speaker of the House, which, by the way, her being Speaker of the House really hasn't delivered anything great for Minnesota. We're not getting better bills because they also boxed themselves in and said they need 68 votes to pass something when they could have done it with a 67-66 majority when the Democrats were in there. So once again, I mean, just not a like. It's like her whole campaign is nothing but spin. You know, for those of us that know what's going on, for those that don't, probably go, oh, she's so nice. You know, she must be a real strong conservative. No, she's not. She is definitely not. All right, continue on.
For 96 years, I have a winning record of getting things done. As Speaker of the House, I fought with the Democrats to establish the Fraud Prevention and Agency Oversight Committee, securing that to make sure people knew there was fraud. My vision, along with my running mate, Ryan Wilson, have a vision to turn this state back around, make it stronger and better. Excellent education for our kids, because right now we are failing our kids. Ending fraud, lowering our taxes, making Minnesota a place that people can stay. I have a hope and a future, and I am ready to lead this state. My name is Lisa Damuth. Thank you for being here.
You know, and I do find it so interesting. It's like the most energy from her campaign is Ryan Wilson's my lieutenant governor candidate. It's like, that whole thing is just disgusting. Like, I said it when they announced it, what a beta move. Like, I've never seen a lieutenant governor being announced like week 1. Kendall Qualls ran for governor in 2022 and didn't even have a lieutenant governor candidate mentioned. And this is pretty common at the endorsing convention, and Lisa comes out of the gate in the second week of her campaign, announces Ryan Wilson as her gubernatorial candidate. Lieutenant governor candidate running mate. And I had no beef with Ryan. In fact, I talked to Ryan a couple months prior saying, hey, man, you ever think about you should probably run? Well, then he's going to run with her. And Ryan Wilson's like dead to us. Like he doesn't even return phone calls or text messages, refused to come on our show to make the case for Lisa Damuth. Because there's really not a big case for Lisa Damuth. She's not a conservative. Somehow there must be some smart people thinking that, well, she'll win the general election, right? She's the best one. She's a woman. She's biracial. She's from greater Minnesota. She's the one that will win. All these other ones won't win. It's like, that's such a foolish thought because quite frankly, once again, she's not impressive. She is a career politician. So when you put her up against Amy Klobuchar, who offers pretty much the same things other than being biracial, I guess, they're going to pick the devil they know. And polling kind of suggests that's what's going to happen. All right, third person is Patrick Knight. Now, this guy you can call an outsider because literally hasn't run for anything that I'm aware of and comes from the business community.
All right, in 5 minutes for Patrick Knight.
Well, good evening, everybody, and thank you, Taylor, and thank you to Joe Ditto and CD2, and thank you for all of you for coming this evening. My name is Patrick Knight, running for governor. Be honest, how many people before tonight had no idea who I was? Raise your hand. Okay, maybe 20%. It's getting better. But by the way, that's the definition of an outsider. Patrick Knight, running for governor. I grew up in Plymouth. I was raised by two great parents that taught me the value of hard work, responsibility, service, and fighting for what you believe in. And that's why I'm running for governor. I'm fighting for Minnesota families who are struggling. It's harder to find a job.
All right, so listen, let's just stop right there. So Patrick's not even a politician, like he hasn't run for a bunch of things like Kendall. He hasn't been in a position, whether it's school board or in the case of a recent title of Minnesota House and now Speaker. And yet he's the one that understands what you need to do here. You need to appeal to the voter. You need to appeal to the delegate. You need to appeal to the people in the audience. And they don't necessarily, they're going to want to know your bio, but that's not why they're here. They're not here to listen to you talk about where you grew up and the titles you had at the Capitol, and never thought you would be a governor. They want to hear how you're going to solve the problems that matter to them. And Patrick is saying exactly what matters to him. Let's go back through this again.
Taught me the value of hard work, responsibility, service, and fighting for what you believe in. And that's why I'm running for governor. I'm fighting for Minnesota families who are struggling. It's harder to find a job. It's harder to afford a house. Parents worry whether or not their kids are getting a good education. Neighborhoods feel less safe. I'm running because I'm tired of the fraud. There's so much fraud, and it feels like we're still not doing anything to hold people accountable. And I'm done with Republicans losing statewide race year after year after year for the last 20 years. And so I did what I always do when I see a problem and I think I can make an impact. I step in and I take action. That's what I did as a Marine Corps officer for 20 years. I started out as a judge advocate, a prosecutor, but I thought I could make a bigger impact in infantry. So I switched to infantry, became a company commander in charge of 200 men. Back then, infantry was all male.
By the way, I didn't even know that. I knew he was a JAG officer, and that made me get a lot more respect for him. Same as me, an infantry captain. That's what I left the Army as.
I learned about leadership, sacrifice, being part of something bigger than yourself. That's what I did in private industry. After active duty, I went to Cargill as an analyst, but I thought I could make a bigger impact in leadership. So I entered the management track and eventually at a different company became CEO of a food manufacturing company. And that's what I did as a parent. When I was a kid growing up, I played football, basketball, and baseball. But my 4 kids, being born in Minnesota, said, if you need to make an impact, you got to do it in hockey. So I learned how to play hockey and coached them for 15 years. But Minnesota needs action. We don't need more talk. We don't need more political theater. We don't need more committees. We need results. One of my favorite quotes.
That's a shot, obviously, at Lisa Damuth and Kristen Robbins, who keep talking about this fraud committee. And the fraud committee that's found zero fraud in the state of Minnesota. They've watched Nick Shirley and the Minnesota media find all this fraud, and they found zero fraud, even though they've been this committee's been stood up for over a year. We don't need more committees. We don't need an inspector general, a new government position. We need actually to reduce the size and scope of government so we stop the fraud. All right, continuing on. By the way, I think Bleeding Aluminum wrote that he was there, I was there, and my opinion, Knight won the night. It's good, because that's kind of my opinion from it. It sounds like a lot of people in the comment section don't know much about him, so we're going to gladly introduce you to Patrick Knight here.
Is from General George Patton. An 80% plan executed aggressively today is better than the perfect plan executed tomorrow.
Hey.
We need action because Minnesotans are struggling. When a hardworking Minnesotan does everything right, he or she pays her taxes, works hard, loves her neighbor, loves her family, lives within their means, and still can't get by, there is something fundamentally wrong with the state.
And that is the statement right there. That's probably the best statement of the night right there. I think a lot of you guys feel that way. I certainly do. I feel like, wow, we're doing all the right things. All the right things. And then you go fill up your tank of gas, or you go to the grocery store, try to buy clothes for your kids, you know, you name it, energy bill. And it's just like, this is not sustainable. You look at your mortgage, you look at the tax bill on your mortgage, you look at the insurance going up on it, right? You guys are probably just like me. You look at your mortgage and yeah, sure, you probably got a fixed rate. So that's locked in. But everything else that's on that statement, not fixed. It's been going up. You know, you got to love it when the county assessor goes, your house is worth $200,000 more now, right? But I'm not selling my home, you know? And then they brag, and this is what happened in Washington County. They brag about not raising taxes on this, but they assess your house at $200K more. That you're just robbing us, right? So you might not have raised the interest or raised the rate of taxes, but you're collecting more taxes from me because arbitrarily you decide it's worth more. And so what does it mean? What does it mean if it's worth more? I ain't selling, you know? So you're just using it to rob us. And we all feel this way. And that's why I think Patrick Knight's right about it. I don't give a shit. I mean, you obviously have to tell us your bio. That's what people want to know, that you're like, you have some qualifications. And I thought he did the best job of all of them, weeding that into how he's there to solve the problems that we care about. Our problem is not what's the best resume up on stage. Our problem is who knows what we're dealing with and then has some potential solutions. And he even handicaps it with, hey, an 80% plan right now is much better than 100% down the road. We use that all the time in the military, you know, not shocked that he knows that quote, obviously, because that's 100%, especially when you're in the infantry. You know, planning alone is already the right action, right? Even if you don't have the 100% plan. In the military, you don't always have the luxury of getting it to 100% because you don't have the time. So yeah, I think this was a very good job. The other thing is he's articulate. Like, you have two politicians on the stage, you know, you just have to call Kendall that because he's run like, this is like fourth, fifth time running for something. So, you know, you should have learned these things. You should have learned how to be a better communicator. Lisa should be a much better communicator. Here's a guy that's articulate, doing a good job. I like that. The problem that I have with Patrick Knight, I mean, I don't know much about him because his campaign has been so milquetoast. It's easily forgettable. You know, you got to think about taking some risks, Patrick. You know, maybe you do stand with us in a lot of the issues, but you don't show that when you do your lit pieces. And then you see the lit pieces like Lisa Damuth, who is, don't I have one here? Maybe I don't. I don't. And then you think she's like some conservative warrior, and she's not. So you need to spice up this campaign.
Families who are hurting, some are losing hope. And so we need to take action. And I've got a plan to do it. And it's based on the fundamentals, 5 core fundamentals, the fundamentals that create success for any society across time and space in history. 5 things. Number 1, affordability. We need to make Minnesota affordable again. Number 2, economic and job growth. We need a strong, resilient economy. Number 3, great education for our kids. We need to fix education by focusing on results. Number 4, safe streets by focusing on the rule of law and public safety. And number 5, good governance, a smaller, stronger state government that delivers for all Minnesotans. And that is doable. We have to get a governor who will roll up his sleeves and fight like hell every day for the fundamentals. And that's what I will do. And what will the state look like if we do that? Well, a young couple, or whether it's you or your kids or a young couple, they can afford to buy a house. And if they're blessed with children, they can afford childcare. And if they send their kids to public school, they will feel confident those kids are getting a first-class education. And if they park their car in the driveway,
sorry guys,
I'm Metro.
Sorry about this, guys. Hold on one sec. Sorry, I know I'm running a show here, and I'm getting distracted by a news story, but I do try to like to break stuff. Looks like there is a report of active shooting at a Detroit synagogue right now. That is not a small presence there. So I'll try to monitor that as we go along in this thing. So yeah, I see a lot of the comments here. A lot of people think he sounds good. Maybe I should have him on the show. I'd like to learn a little bit more. Certainly from my vantage point, he seemed to be doing the best job of the people on stage. All right, let's get into the first question here from Taylor because I would suspect this came from someone that's very aligned with you and me here in politics. Looks like we're getting another ad here. 1 second. Bam.
All right, we are going to move into the question section of the forum debate here, which each candidate will get 2 minutes to answer the question. And I want to thank all the candidates for staying within their times on opening statements. Please continue to do that. And for the candidates, if at any time you need me to repeat the question, if you're second or third in line, just please let me know and I'll be happy to do that. So we're going to start with question 1. And first up for answering this will be Kendall Qualls. Some say midterm elections are about turnout, and this year gives Minnesota Republicans a real chance to re-energize voters. With some voters frustrated that state government keeps growing, no matter which party is in charge, whether it's publicly funded abortions in the HHS Omnibus bills, continued spending on fraudulent programs like CCAP, or major Democrat budget increases. Given that, what positive vision can Republicans offer to inspire voters and show that meaningful fiscal change is within reach?
All right, good question, huh? Right? Like, hey, the Unit Party keeps increasing government, and they're funding things like abortion, right? Hey, Lisa Damuth, they're funding things like abortion. You're funding things like abortion. So, fair question. Let's see how they respond.
Well, absolutely. So one of the things that addresses this, how can we manage the physical responsibility, but also I think embedded in that question in this midterm, how do we excite people to turn out? Number one, we have a different candidate profile that we haven't had in 20 years. 2 outsiders, 2 guys that love the state are only getting in because we want to help rescue the state of Minnesota. I'm not running against any of these other good people. I'm running to save and rescue the state of Minnesota. And that's what Brian Nicholson is doing as well. I met Brian.
That's his lieutenant governor candidate.
Campaign trail. He was CEO of a manufacturing company, and he had a love for this state that got him into this. And how we turn this around physically is this: we have to win.
By the way, the intel there is that Kendall was having trouble finding lieutenant governor candidate. Sorry, the rumors. I shouldn't say intel. Rumors could be not true, but I've heard this from a reliable source. It's interesting. The Nichols, I can't even think of the guy's first name, comes purely from the private sector, not too involved. But even Nichols, like you would imagine, is very wealthy. Only gave I think it was like $1,000 to Kendall Qualls' campaign, which you could give up to $4,000. So it almost seems like he wasn't even bought in on Kendall. It's interesting to me. That was something Jesse found.
Our trifecta. If we only get the governor's seat, we can't do radical changes back to normal. You're basically captain of a sinking ship because the paid family leave act, the high taxes, we won't be able to change those things. Businesses will continue to leave, the jobs will leave, your friends and family will leave, and your grandchildren will leave. Where the jobs go, the people go. And we can only make those radical changes of normalcy if we control the levers of power. So that's number one. And how we do that? I have a plan for that. I'll have it in my closing statement for you, and you'll love it.
And his plan is contract with Minnesota, because I could see we're going real long here. So he brings this up later. Qualls and Nicholson from Minnesota commitments. He's, taking this from Newt Gingrich's contract with America from back in the early 90s. Number one, roll back taxes. Number two, end fraud, restore accountability. Three, protect election integrity. All the red meat for the conservative ranks. But you could see even here, sign the Never Again bill. The COVID era showed the danger of unlimited executive power. Minnesotans must never again see businesses closed by decree, children locked out of schools, churches restricted, or personal freedom suspended indefinitely. So there you go. Even in his planks, added the Never Again bill. Also ended in Omnibus legislation. That was a question that they bring up. Okay, let me fast forward to Lisa, who seems incapable of answering this question in any good way, to be honest with you. It's crazy.
Thank you. And now Lisa Damuth.
When I look at the opportunity that we have in 2026, think with me on this. It is the governor, lieutenant governor, every constitutional officer, the entire Minnesota House, the entire Minnesota Senate, and one U.S. Senate seat. That is what we have ahead of us as Republicans, but as a state. This is the perfect opportunity for change. When I was considering running for governor, I first asked the question, is there a pathway forward for a Republican to win in this state? Governor Pawlenty had been majority leader in the legislature, in the House of Representatives, and he won. It is time to turn that around. When I said yes, I said I'm ready to defeat any Democrat.
Me, not the question. You're going to see it when Patrick, when it's his turn to respond, he has to have the question read again because he doesn't remember because he missed his word salad. I think Jesse calls her Lisa Kamala Damuth. I mean, do you see it more and more every day, like how much she resembles Kamala Harris? It's crazy.
Whether it is Tim Walz or if he is replaced. Clearly, it is not Tim Walz now. Beating Amy Klobuchar is absolutely positive. How do we do that? First of all, we make sure every Republican statewide turns out, because in the last midterm in 2022, we had 200,000 Republicans that didn't show up to vote. So we turn everyone out to vote by being excited.
By the way, I just don't even buy like anyone that smiles talking like this. I just don't buy it. I feel like you're acting. Like, who talks this way? By the way, what are we excited? What are we smiling about? Like, are your consultants going, you got to come across as very likable. You got to always be smiling. It's like, no, sometimes in politics, you don't be smiling. Like, we're here because something's wrong and you need to show us you understand it's wrong. So, but you just throw on this grin the whole time. It's just, it's so bizarre. All right, let's continue on.
For our pathway forward. We also can bump those numbers up in the suburbs. I am from Greater Minnesota. My running mate, Ryan Wilson, is from Maple Grove, from the suburbs. We also know we can bump those numbers up in the metro area, just fractions. But it is a winning message, not just the best candidate, but a winning message also. Common sense, meaning that we will support life, we'll make Minnesota more affordable, we'll make sure to protect our Second Amendment rights, and that girls don't belong in boys' sports. No. Boys don't belong in girls' sports.
Play that again real quick.
Meaning that we will support life. We'll make Minnesota more affordable. We'll make sure to protect our Second Amendment rights, and that girls don't belong in boys' sports. No. Boys don't belong in girls' sports. Boys do not belong in girls' bathrooms. Those are common sense things that people are looking for.
I mean, it's almost like Patrick Knight, Patrick Knight. Like, he wins me over just on the very senses. Like, is this lady really just doing this again? Like, you don't inspire anyone, Lisa. Like, look at his posture there. Maybe that's just how he listens. I don't know, but it's just like, what are you talking about? She can't get it right. She's very much like Kamala. I don't know. I'm sorry if I'm offending anyone, but that's just how I read it. That's what I see here.
That is a message we can bring forward that is going to excite people to vote for a Republican. That is why I'm running. It is doable.
Patrick Knight.
Could you repeat the question?
Some Some say midterm elections are about turnout, and this year gives Minnesota Republicans a real chance to re-energize voters. With some voters frustrated that state government keeps growing no matter which party is in charge, whether it's publicly funded abortions in the HHS omnibus bills, continued spending on fraudulent programs like CCAP, or major Democrat budget increases. Given that, what positive vision can Republicans offer to inspire voters and show that meaningful fiscal change is within reach?
Thank you. You know, the other day I was talking to somebody who claimed he was a Republican, and he said, you know, Republicans are not going to beat Amy Klobuchar, so we need to play it safe and just try to hold on to the Senate.
Okay, now that is, I like how he says that, because, yeah, a lot of us are starting to feel that way. Okay, now I wouldn't phrase it that way. I wouldn't say that they can't. I'm saying that they are geared towards not being able to, and that's mostly because I look, Kendall Qualls and Lisa Damuth are the lead candidates right now, and I don't believe either one's going to win, and I certainly don't think Lisa Damuth is. Okay, and so then it's like, well, geez, you better try to get the legislature so that we don't get the Democrat trifecta again. But, you know, he's obviously running from a different vantage point because, you know, he's trying to become the governor. So I like how he addresses that. Let's hear how he responds to it.
To which I say BS. The facts are on our side. The values on our side. The solutions are on our side. 2026 is a huge opportunity. We need to have the mindset of going in to win. Now, the way we do that is by focusing on the 5 core fundamentals I mentioned earlier, because those are the foundation of human flourishing. Societies that have those 5 foundational elements flourish across time, across history, regardless of which continent they're based on. And we need to focus on that like a laser, because they benefit every Minnesotan, regardless of how they vote, what they look like, where they live. People just want to live their life. And the benefit of the 5 foundational elements, which I'll go over again at the risk of boring you, they can be boring, which is affordability.
Well, don't say that, buddy.
Education, rule of law, and good governance. The key to that, it benefits everybody, and it puts people, not government, at the center of the story. If those foundational elements are in place, people don't need government. For some reason, the current government in St. Paul thinks it's a good thing. By the more people that are dependent on government handouts, the better. It should be the exact opposite. So I think we've got the right message. Get the foundations in place so people can thrive.
You know, that's actually a very interesting point. You just heard it. We broke down Tim Walz's press conference on Tuesday, and he is bragging about how many people are on the take in Minnesota. It was like 1.3 million, whatever he said. And it's almost like, wait, we should have a governor giving us a monthly report of how many people are no longer dependent on government. Wouldn't that be a great thing? Why don't we go that direction? Or the Republican House members? You guys, Lisa, you could do that right now. Let's start a counter how many people we get off the government teat. Or are we not really Republicans? I don't know. Fair question, right? Yeah, I'm going to have this guy. I just put a note here. I got to have this guy on the program here. Let's go to there's a question on healthcare. Let's hear the question, and then I'll.
That people can get high to lower costs, but health and
Here's the question.
Thank you, and we will go right back to you, Patrick, for question number 2. Health insurance premiums remain a major burden for Minnesota families, affecting both their budgets and their access to care. What specific steps would you take to lower costs, improve competition, and ensure that people can get high-quality care without being priced out of the system?
Okay, and I'm going to skip over Patrick's response. Basically, I don't know everything about healthcare, which is why I would point to people that do know, and we need to get out of the hands of government. What I was curious on that question is, well, how's Lisa responded? She's actually the Speaker of the House. She could do something right now.
Healthcare companies.
Mrs. Speaker?
When we look at healthcare costs rising, part of that is because of the state mandates that are put on healthcare companies to cover things that shouldn't be covered or things that are unaffordable. That drives up our cost. We also have to look at our economy overall here in the state of Minnesota. When we look at paid family leave, earned sick and safe time, delays in permitting, that makes it a harder business economy to do anything here in the state. When we have an opportunity for our businesses to actually reduce their cost and invest in ways that best serves them to serve their employees with benefits such as healthcare, those become recruitment and retention tools that businesses really need. Also, looking at healthcare costs, one of the things that I was able to accomplish for our state as Speaker of the House was ending healthcare for illegal immigrants, and that is taxpayer funding.
Okay, first of all, now, so the question is, how do you solve the problem for us? I don't know if you guys are like me, but my healthcare costs went up $400 a month. My premiums, something like that, and we actually, I think, went down a policy. So, like, we're not talking about a small thing to our family. We're talking about a significant cost. Basically, a car payment. That's how much difference. No, and quality went down. So quality went down and like a car payment difference a month at my household. Lisa, what's your plan? Bunch of word salad, and then let me talk and brag about something that I didn't fully do, which is end healthcare for illegals. And Kendall bites back. Let's go back through this here.
Healthcare for illegal immigrants. At healthcare cost, one of the things that I was able to accomplish for our state as Speaker of the House was ending healthcare for illegal immigrants, and that is taxpayer funding of healthcare for illegal immigrants. Even with just a tie in the House of Representatives, I was able to bring that forward. When the Democrats passed that back in 2023, it started January of 25. They said there would be 5,000 people on that program taking advantage of it. In 4 short months, we were at 20,000 illegal immigrants on taxpayer-funded healthcare here in the state of Minnesota. That was unaffordable. That makes us a magnet for those kind of services. By ending that, I was able to help keep our healthcare costs down and save the taxpayers money by ending that program in the state of Minnesota. That is how we keep our healthcare down. Less mandates and doing the right thing for people that are working hard in their jobs.
Let me stop right there. Stop right there. I got a Rumble rant. I wasn't monitored closely enough. Brad says $5. I would like to see Patrick sit down with Jake. Well, it's going to happen. We'll reach out to him. I assume he won't have any problem coming on the show. If he does, I guess that tells us something. But I'm guessing they'll probably find out. It was the audience and myself was very, very happy with his performance, and it's actually going to get better too. By the way, the show might end up as long as the debate, but trust me, it's going to be more entertaining with the commentary. The debate really sucks. Like I'm just looking at my note sheet right here. I go from 29 minutes in, and then it jumps up to 53 minutes in. It's not a great debate, and the audience does not seem to have a lot of energy. That's one of the problems. Patrick shines over 2 lackluster candidates, in my opinion. Okay, so let's hear Kendall bite back. This is pretty good. I like it.
Mr. Qualls.
Yeah, I think there's a point of clarification, and Lisa, correct me if I'm wrong. That health care that was eliminated for illegal immigrants for adults is still kept in place for children. Is that correct?
Go ahead.
That is for anyone under the age of 18 was the negotiation that took place with the tie.
Okay, so it's not completely eliminated.
Ending the health care for 18 and over are the most expensive,
Okay.
and we ended that for 20,000 Minnesotans.
Okay, so yeah, and he's right. So she just bragged about something she didn't fully do. So the health care, the big negotiation at the end, this was the one thing the Republicans walked away with. I'm not saying it's not nothing, but I'm just saying this isn't the big wins that they could have got. But they only ended health care for illegal adults. Illegal children get health care. Now think about this. Do your children get free health care? Right? So you pay taxes so that the children of illegal aliens, people that shouldn't be here, get free health care. And that's because of Lisa Damuth. Like, what a messed up priority. So Kendall tries taking that down, and then he goes on for like a minute of just, you can't communicate. Just watch this response. It's crazy.
Okay. Well, I have friends, and many of you do have friends that came here legally from India, from other countries. They have to sign a waiver that get no government benefits. They take 8 years to get U.S. citizenship. Their kids are not covered. Their kids don't get free. How we do this in politics is I believe, not full truth to tell everyone. Right now, Hennepin County Medical Center is bankrupt. They have $100 million of unpaid medical expenses. Whether it's an adult or a child, it doesn't matter who's going to bail them out. All of us. Part of our expensive health care is that we have people that are getting services that shouldn't. Number two, a part of our healthcare system, we need to go to a more market-driven healthcare system. I was never a proponent of Obamacare. I didn't vote for him either time. We were warning people he's faking you out. He's a fraud. Listen, we did the Obamacare Affordable Care Act. Now the Affordable Care Act, 15 years later, needs subsidies for people to afford it. We need to go back to a market-based system. My friends, all of our states are 50 laboratories of experiments, and we need to experiment, and I got solutions on how we can reduce healthcare costs. I've been in the healthcare industry for 30 years. I know how to bring choices around that to help lower costs, and we can do it in our state of
What do you guys think he fumbles so much, and it seems like more here. Is it because he's uncomfortable because he snapped back at Lisa and like he's not good with confrontation? He's a little nervous, or is it just that he's not confident what he's saying? I don't understand the dynamic here, but it's so bizarre. Like how he just can't finish sentences. It's really weird. But this has been my criticism of Kendall from the get-go. He's not impressive as a candidate, right? Might seem like a totally good dude. And I don't fully know where he stands on the issues, but I think he leans more conservative, right? Lisa obviously is not because she's got a voting record. But like that's a big deal. Like you're a no-namer going up against Amy Klobuchar. You're going to have to like wow people. And I don't see you wowing people. And I don't think you wowed people that night. Right? Okay, let's move ahead. Lisa starts bragging about the fraud committee. This is always funny to me. I mean, like literally, this is how bad the debate is. We're going to move ahead like 20 minutes down the road.
Was not done. So I think fraud is a big problem. Easy fix. Get a competent governor.
Done as speaker shows my commitment when given that authority to end fraud in the state of Minnesota. It will also be, as I've mentioned, holding commissioners accountable for the work that is being done. It's also in their committee or their agencies. It will also be basic standard accounting principles being brought back into every agency. My running mate, Ryan Wilson, ran for state auditor back in 2022. Remember I said there were 200,000 Republicans that didn't show up to vote? Ryan Wilson narrowly missed that by just 8,000 votes. He was already talking about fraud.
Everyone was
needing to bring an end to it and couldn't get the traction. The Damuth Wilson ticket is ready to end fraud with accountability and a plan going forward.
By the way, that's the weirdest response. So your running mate who you're bragging about tried running on fraud, couldn't get traction, and we're ready now? Like, that's the weirdest thing. Sorry, I must have skipped over her bragging about the fraud committee. Let me go back to it.
Done. So I think fraud is a big problem. Easy fix. Get a competent governor. Thank you.
I had the timestamp wrong here.
Lisa.
Ending fraud in Minnesota is a commitment that I have made as governor day one. You've already seen my work with establishing the Fraud Prevention and Agency Oversight Committee as soon as I became speaker. And I'll tell you a little insight on that. When we were negotiating the organizational agreement, the Democrats didn't want me to name it the Fraud Prevention and Agency Oversight Committee. And they didn't want the focus on that. They said, you can do a little work on there, just don't call it that. I said, we will absolutely call it the Fraud Prevention.
Oh, you're the tough one.
Drawn attention to it. We also did.
It's done nothing. It has done nothing. They don't even have subpoena power, but they are lack so much respect and fear that even Keith Ellison was willing to come speak to them. Like he didn't even mind. They have no subpoena power. They couldn't even make Ellison show up, but he does anyhow because he's like, these guys aren't going to get the best of me, right? Like, it's found no fraud. And she goes and brags about it. That's insanity, in my opinion. She's bragging about it. And it's just so weird. I can't get over this thing. She brags about, like, her running mate failing on talking about fraud, which everyone was talking about fraud. Remember 2022, in the fall of 2022, it was found out that Tim Walz kept the payments going to the Feeding Our Future fraud. This was a big issue in 2022, and she acts like her running mate Ryan Wilson was the one bringing attention to it, and then says he couldn't get any traction, but somehow we have traction now. It's so weird.
Just 8,000 votes.
Let's go
back in 20. Accounting principles being brought back into every agency. My running mate Ryan Wilson ran for state auditor back in 2022. Remember, I said there were 200,000 Republicans that didn't show up to vote? Ryan Wilson narrowly missed that by just 8,000 votes. He was already talking about fraud.
Everyone was
needing to bring an end to it and couldn't get the traction. The Damuth Wilson ticket is ready to end fraud with accountability and a plan going forward from day one when we are finally in office.
By the way, I don't know if I counted this, but I don't know if she ever started with any of the questions. Like, why did I correct me if I'm wrong, but usually it's you change the positioning of who gets the question first. I don't think Lisa ever got the question first, which would be to her benefit because I don't think she's good on thinking on her feet, by the way. There's the applause.
My friends, I think all of us in the private sector, we're used to quarterly reports that we have to then roll up each quarter to make sure that our budgets are aligned, revenues, our expenses, and we know when there's a gap and there's something missing. If it happens the second quarter consistently, then there's someone being investigated, and then there's typically embezzlement charges, and that person's out of the organization. It never lasts 9 years. During that time, we've had this happen, and again, I don't know how many of our Republicans voted for these bills as we've seen these departments and these budgets triple in growth. At a certain point, you got to say, I'm not voting for this because something's nefarious here. No one's doing anything about it.
Geez, who would that be on the stage that's been voting for these big bills that keep growing government? Lisa Damuth. There you go.
I don't know. I didn't hear about it. But the other part of this is leadership 101. The best prevention of fraud is the leadership part and holding people accountable on the front end. It's a front end solution, not a back end process. If you got to deal with this stuff always on the back end, then you have a front end problem and something's corrupt in your organization. Good leaders weed that out instantly. And that's what.
Okay, I got a couple other things I want to highlight here. Patrick Knight did a good job on talking about we don't need another government program for fraud because that's basically Lisa Damuth's solution is this department, a new inspector general agency. So more government to solve the problem of too much government. But Patrick Knight's all over that.
And before we move on to the next question, I'm going to recognize Patrick Knight for 30 seconds.
It's not a rebuttal, it's more just a comment. I know through the legislature, the Republicans are trying to work on another department to oversee and prevent fraud. And I understand the intent behind that, but I think that is the wrong idea. We don't need more government because if the Democrats are in control, it's just one more government entity they're going to ignore. We just need a strong governor that enforces the law. Thank you.
All right, and we will move on to the next question, and we will start with Mr. Qualls. Tax burdens in Minnesota have become increasingly difficult for families and businesses, and state mandates are placing added financial pressure on our cities and counties. As a result, many businesses, even longtime residents, especially retirees, are choosing to leave the state. How do you plan to specifically address overtaxation and relieve the fiscal strain that's driving people and employees out of our state?
Okay, good, fair question. And I marked here that Patrick took this question very well. So let's go to his statement.
Tax burdens in Minnesota have become increasingly difficult for families and businesses, and state mandates and even plan to address overtaxation and relieve the fiscal strain that's driving people away.
Well, the biggest problem is spending. State spending is out of control. 2023, we
And who on the stage is part of that problem?
increased state spending by 40%, $18 billion, $12 billion of which was reoccurring. We do not have a revenue problem. We've got a spending problem. And one thing to keep in mind is that spending and results are two completely different things. Just because we spend money doesn't mean we're doing a good thing. What matters is the results. As anybody in the private sector knows, what matters is results, not good intentions, not the good virtue. What results are being delivered? And I think we need to go line by line and understand what is happening with our state spending. We need to take care of the truly vulnerable. That's one of the government's key responsibilities. But we need to get spending under control. When I ran my business, in my back of my mind, I always had, hey, if the difficulty came, I could always cut 10%. It would be very difficult to do. There are plenty of things that I did not want to get rid of, but if I needed to, I could really tighten the belt 10%.
And by the way, people in business world cut up to a third of their business when they have to. That's 10% is nothing, really. It sucks, though, especially when people's jobs are on the line. But when do you ever hear government talking that way? Like they act as if we could never possibly. That's the whole idea of this rainy day fund, the reserve fund. We couldn't possibly have government shrink. And Lisa Dame was part of that problem. She never even proposes to shrink government. All right, let's continue on.
What can we do in the state government? Well, I know we can do better. I don't want to, I've always been taught as a salesperson, under promise, over deliver, but there is massive opportunity. How do I know? Just look at the fraud numbers. But the issue we've got is spending. We've got to get spending under control. You all live within your means. The state needs to do the same. Thank you.
Oh, and a good response from the crowd, too. Good for them.
And we will move to the next question, and we will start with you, Patrick. Minnesota has lost many farmers in the past year, even though agriculture makes up roughly 15%.
Oh, I'm going to go to a different question. So last one I wanted to point out was the Omnibus bill question. It's pretty awesome that they asked this question. Let's see here. See if I can get the actual question.
And we will move to the next question, and we will start with you, Patrick. Minnesota has lost many farmers in the past year.
Oh, that is the
even
same
though
one.
Agriculture makes up roughly 15% of our state's economy. Farmers say regulations such as buffer strip.
Oh, am I going to get a commercial here? I think I'm going to. Oh, you're not.
By signing these big omnibus.
Okay, here we go.
Thank you. And our last question before we get into our closing remarks is a two-part question, and we'll start with Mr. Qualls. Do you support the legislative practice of passing large omnibus bills? And do you support reforms to ensure greater transparency and accountability?
Well, you're getting ahead of me there. So first of all, I'm making a public pledge that we should only have single issue bills, no massive spending bills. That's the way the founders wanted. That's the way we should do it. I wouldn't sign any of these big spending bills. They're hiding behind the issues by signing these big omnibus bills and not being accountable on what's in them. This is one of the reasons why we've got this fraud as we are. We've been funding this, and it's been signed off even by some of the members of our own party.
Yes, the one right next to you, the one to your left or right. She's the one signing on to this stuff, right? She's the one passing omnibus bills. So let's go, and I love his statement here. Let's hold him to it if he gets elected. But how's Lisa respond to this? She's actually the one voting for omnibus bills.
Speaker Damuth.
In 2024, the last night of session, there was a 1,400-page bill that was passed. It was not available online. It was not available in print. And we were in the minority, and there was nothing that we could do about it. I had a press conference earlier today, and I assured everyone at that press conference that you will not see a 1,400-page bill come through the House of Representatives this year.
You only see a 1,300 page. I mean, it's such a joke. Like, you guys do the same thing. Maybe it didn't make it to 1,400 pages. It's 900 pages, but you do the same thing. And by the way, who's the one that brought that to the floor? Melissa Hortman. You guys got done. Are you guys done singing praises about how great of a leader and person she was? Right? She was actually ruining the state of Minnesota. But you guys, it's all one club, and you can't say enough nice things about Melissa Hortman these days. She's the one dumping a 1,400 page and ignoring any protest to it. It's all a show to these people.
Fully believe in transparency in government. Bills should be single subject. That can be multiple bills, but if they're under the same area of law, it can include other provisions. That's what we are pushing for this year in the legislation.
You're pushing for it.
I will continue to do so as governor. The other thing the governor has the opportunity to do is line item.
Why would anyone believe her? She doesn't do it now. Oh, but make me governor, and then I'm really going to push for it. And then she goes on talking about, well, then it's line item vetoes that I have, right? You don't do enough right now. You are passing omnibus bills. Don't trust these people, right? There's an old saying, how do you know a politician's lying? Because their mouth is moving, right? All right. Well, I think I did a decent job with the breakdown here. Went way over an hour, but hopefully that worked out for you guys. Those are the candidates. Those are the main candidates. Obviously, Mike Lindell's missing on that stage. Mike's not agreed to abide by the endorsement as of yet right now. Maybe if he does, then he'll be invited to those things. I know that CD2 is actually trying to put on another one of these things with the Senate candidates, which would be interesting. Boy, if they do, we better talk about the war in Iran. That better be a question. All right, I'm going to do a couple follow-up thoughts here in the post show. If you are a premium insider, join me in the post show. If you're not, let me just go ahead and post the link real quick. Become a premium insider. If you're not watching this show live, most people don't. You can still go to truthhurtsnews.com and click on support us on the top, or on our Rumble page, you can click on join us. Also, this episode was brought to you by Alpine Cabinetry in the great city of St. Cloud, Minnesota. We're also brought to you by EliteGuardianMN.com. Sign up for one of our upcoming Minnesota Permit to Carry courses. You go to EliteGuardianMN.com, click on Minnesota Permit to Carry class. There are a bunch of options. Mondays, Wednesdays, starting March 23rd, 2 weeks in a row. There are morning and evening classes. Our morning classes were really popular recently. So I don't know why that was, but I would love to have you in either one. And if those don't work for you, we have virtual classes, one coming up Sunday, 6 to 8:30, and then you'll find a time later on to come to the range and shoot with me. So this is an awesome opportunity. Just go to EliteGuardianMN.com, sign up. Take the responsibility of protecting your family and yourself by being a responsible gun owner and getting your Minnesota permit to carry, which is the requirement in the state of Minnesota. If you want to carry a firearm, you must have a Minnesota permit to carry. Otherwise, you're breaking the law, according to what's written on the books. So go to EliteGuardianMN.com. We're going to go live with our post show here in just 30 seconds. For everyone else, we'll be back next Tuesday. Take care and God bless. Bye-bye.